Hello and welcome. And this is one of my 60 inspirational conversations. And today I have got the pleasure of being with Victoria Green. Now, Victoria has been sort of in my world for quite some time, but we didn't actually meet and get together and have an actual conversation. I've sort of known of her, but we haven't actually, it's been very recently that we've actually connected and had some conversations. And I thought she would be an amazing lady to have a conversation with today, to share, to see what inspiration she is going to bring for us. So, Victoria, do you want to tell us a little bit about who you are and anything that feels relevant about who you are that you might want to tell us?
I will do. But before I go into that, I just want to say thank you for inviting me. And also, I know we only connected recently, like like having a conversation. But I feel like I've known you forever, and it feels like we should have had that conversation years ago. So I just wanted to
Absolutely.
put that out there. Um,
Yeah, we've definitely been circling in each other's worlds for quite some time, but never actually come together to have a conversation, which is kind of what this is all about, so good.
yeah. So brilliant. So who am I? Well, um,
Million-dollar question.
yeah, I'm a mum, I'm a wife, I'm a coach. Um, I'm doing some exciting things with education, and I guess I'm I'm who I am now and where I am now, largely um, due to coming across the three principles a while back. I'm gonna best guess. I'm gonna say about 10 years ago. I think it's a bit longer than that. Um, and I'm not gonna go into like what the three principles are or anything. I found it hugely beneficial to um kind of realize where my feelings were coming from. That made a massive difference in my life. But um, I think we briefly said like before that, and what gets me really excited, like, um, is kind of who we are behind all that, and what's really running the show. And in the three principles community, they call that mind. But in other areas, well, it's called other things like spirit, God, whatever people words people want to come um, put on that. So, are you just happy for me to like?
Yeah, I would love to know more about some of your insights on what you saw and what changed you. Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm going to share. So I was in Spain, Albia, at a Jack Pransky and Sheila Massand training about um well, it was about deep listening, but it was kind of exploring the principles more, or sharing from a three principles understanding, something like that. And we had an exercise to do, and we were put in pairs, and the aim of the exercise was to listen with love, so and to notice when you weren't listening. So to notice when like the chatter was coming in, and just to listen to what someone was sharing, and ask them what that meant to them, and ask them if it was true. That was it. But you just had to listen, really. And we got into pairs, and I didn't have anything to share. So I was like, well, you go first and I'll listen. And I noticed that as I was listening, this voice kept coming in. Oh my God, what are you going to say when it's your turn? And I just had to keep, because the exercise was listen with love. So I had to just think, well, shut up, go away, and refocus. And and it was lovely. It was a beautiful experience. Think they saw something like new for themselves with what they were sharing, and then it was my turn. And I hadn't been answering this voice. I hadn't been figuring it out because I'd been focused on the exercise. So it was my turn and I just had to speak. And I think like what came out was I feel like I'm holding myself back, that there's this flow I could just do, like go with, but I'm not doing. And it turns out that I thought if I were to do that, like if I was to stop trying to control everything, I'd end up losing my house, my home, my husband. And I was like, as soon as I said it, it was like, it's obviously not true. And that was massive to see. But then I was kind of left there going, well, hang on a minute. That's not a question that had been keeping me up at night. Like it wasn't just something I pulled out like from, oh, I've this is what I've been ruminating over. Let's talk about it. Like I had zero like awareness of that question that at all. And it just came out because I had like nothing else to say, and I ended up seeing something huge about it, and I was just like, my goodness, where where did that come from? And I couldn't figure it out. Like I'd just kind of like I just put it down to what, just like a that's unexplainable. Okay, move on. Like get on with everything else. And it was I think I was listening to something by Sydney Banks, and um I often did that as I was going to sleep because I'd find myself just like drifting off and maybe waking up to a part of it. And all of a sudden I woke I have no idea which audio I was listening to or what he was saying, but I was just like, "Oh my God, that's it." And I had this really like um vision of the whole universe like fragmented, like jigsaw pieces, and like no matter how well we did at that jigsaw, how many we fit together, it would never be like a true representation of what the actual universe was. And I was like, "Oh my God, that's our thinking." Like like no matter how hard we try and work things out and put things together, there's a universe behind that
Mm.
that's massive and perfect, and like even all the pieces all together all at the same time wouldn't be a full comprehension of it. Um and that's my words, and I don't really feel they do it justice. But what that meant to me was I don't have to work this out.
Mm.
I'm not running the show here. And this is so like tiny little examples from so this Spain retreat was in two parts, a weekend, some work in between, and then a weekend at the end. And I think we were getting ready to go for the final weekend, and I couldn't find my passport anywhere. And so this is the night before, and I'd not worried about it because I knew I'd seen it somewhere. And I looked everywhere and I couldn't find it. I looked everywhere again, I still couldn't find it. And Matt, Matt was proper freaking out because we had a holiday planned not long after, and he was like, "Well, you're never going to get an emergency one in time. You've got to find it. You've got to find it." And I just thought, "But I've looked everywhere. Like I'm not going to find it like this. But I know it's in the house. I've seen it." So I was just like, "Well, maybe I'm not supposed to go. And if I am, maybe something will come to me." So I just carried on getting ready with my work, like, um, working and finishing my work off. Everything was packed, and then all of a sudden it came to me that it was like, I'm sure I saw it on the shoe rack. Maybe it's dropped down the back, and it had, and that's, you know, part of me knew that I'd seen it, and something within me would clock that, and if I was to remember it, I'd remember it, and if I didn't, no amount of looking in the same places that I'd already looked in twice would find it. Um, and part of it was just a trust that if I can't find my passport when I know that it's in the house, then maybe I'm really not supposed to go. And so it's little things like that, and then massive things like realizing everyone's got that.
Mm. Mm.
So I wouldn't say I was a massively anxious parent, but I did think as a parent it was my job to make sure they learned everything that they had to at school, make sure they did well, and they make sure they were tidy, make sure they didn't scream and make a scene, and they knew how to act properly in public. Um, make sure they ate well, regardless of whether they liked it or not.
Mm.
If there was goodness in there, they had make sure they slept on time and they actually like went to bed and slept and didn't mess about and all these. Make sure they wore a coat, even if they didn't want to, if it wasn't warm enough. Like just so many, like a million little things a day that I thought it was my job to do. And all of a sudden, I realized that actually they had access to this too.
Mm.
Like my parenting went from kind of knowing best and um well, I'm not even sure I would have said I know best. Like I know what a parent needs to do, but having an idea of what best might look like and trying to
Forcing everyone into that.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
It went from that to being, oh my God, they've got everything they need. And actually, like, if I just listen, you know, they've got this too.
Mm.
It just went from the biggest thing that I could give them was the listening and the presence and the space for them to realize. And that was like, at the time, one of my daughters was self harming. And I'd like when I first came across the principles and I realized like the power of thinking and everything, I so wanted her to get that and see that and realize that it was all being internally created,
Yeah.
and that she didn't have to and not and you could tell that she knew it was her thinking, but then there was but why am I thinking like this?
Yeah.
You know, so there was a real desire in me for her to see that she didn't have to worry about that too.
Mm.
You know, that if she really, really saw what was going on, she could just leave it and it would um and and when I realized that kind of we're not running the show, you know, there wasn't anything for me to do. Which seems really hard because, like, every instinct is going, "No, you've got to do something. You've got to stop." Like, I remember getting a phone call from school and school saying, "It's really good. It's really good that we found out because if she didn't want us to find out, we wouldn't know. And the fact that we know is a really good sign. It means that um, it's not done with any deliberate, like secretive intent kind of thing. It's done because of a lack of knowing what else to do, and that she's seeking help." And then they went on to say, "And yet we've got to, like, give her some better tools because obviously she might go too far and she might really hurt herself and end up in hospital." And I'm like, you know, there's this real maternal, like, desire to jump in, fix it, stop it, make them feel happy again.
And a societal thing, I think, as well. Like you say, we have this. I know for me, one of my biggest things, and the people that I work with and speak to, even when we don't realize it, is this: what will people think? It's like a blinking mountain, isn't it? That we're sort of worried, like you say, when we're a mom or, in charge of doing, supposedly in charge of doing something. It's this whole, the pressure to get it right and the pressure to be seen to be getting it right as well. And this whole idea that it's not on me, I can actually stand back and allow, really pushes buttons in that, with our conditioning around that, doesn't it? I mean, I had tingles when you were sharing that about, what you saw, and you can really see the freedom in life when we realized, look, I'm not running the show. This isn't on me. I can't do that. So with the best will in the world, it's pointless trying. It's pointless to do that because we exhaust ourselves when we are trying to do things that we can't. It'd be like if you got a seed and you're like, grow, grow, grow. It's like, yeah, just it just doesn't work that way. You need to put it in the earth and water it and give it some sunshine. That's how it works. And just standing there yelling at it to grow, it's never going to work. You're just going to be exhausted. But this whole thing that society sort of says, no, shout at your seeds, make it grow. And we always feel like we need to do that.
Yeah. And like, it's how, like, putting it into words now sounds really bad, especially in that light, that the literally I did nothing. You know, I my I saw my role as simply loving her and listening if and when she wanted to talk. And that wasn't often. So sometimes all I would do be sitting there while she was watching like rubbish TV. And even that, there's like, as a mum, there's this thing like, do something more useful, do something more positive, go for a walk. That
Yeah.
will like put you in a better frame of mind. But literally, like, I used to just sit there and send her love.
I actually want to stop you in this bit when you just said, you know, I didn't really do anything. I think that loving someone unconditionally, loving someone without the need to change them, I think that is the biggest gift we can give another human being. And I think it is one of the most difficult things to do. When especially if we have like come across something like the principles or had our own revelation about something, seen, like, you saw, wow, this is thinking and I can't do it, it's not on me. You've had that huge revelation and you see the massive change that makes for you, who you are internally, what you're doing out here. You see that, and the desire to give that to someone else, especially someone you love who is struggling. It's like, don't ask me just to love them. You've given me this insight. I've got to force this insight into that person. So I actually think the depth of that insight, which said to you, no, I'm actually going to just love her. And when you say, I mean, love to me is like the power of God, mind, universe. That's the power. So just loving
Yeah.
someone is the most powerful thing that we can do.
Yeah, and there were times when I was itching to jump in, and and sometimes I would with a have you thought about, and you could tell like the defenses going up, and I could feel my energy shift, and then it'd be like a yeah, I'm sorry, just ignore me. I was having a bit of a panic. Um, I was just overly worried, and then like I'd literally have to, sit on my hands. There were times it this isn't like funny, but we had this thing with iPhones. I don't know if it's a general thing, but the accounts seem to be shared. So sometimes I'd have access to like I'd see some of her pictures from her accounts, and I'd see the scars, or I'd see how skinny she'd got
Mm,
because it was covered up like normally. So I'd see that she actually looked like a skeleton, and she was still saying that she like thought she was fat. And to me, that was really scary because I thought like even coming across the principles, I thought that once you get into that mindset, you've really you, you've you've really got some really untrue thinking going on that like is hard to unpick. For me that was, oh my god, like I'm losing her. You know, that's what it felt like, and still, um I saw my main job as just being there, just listening when she was ready to open up and just being there. And I remember like one day, completely out of the blue. So she'd always been clever, and she'd always been 100% not interested in school. She went there to chat and have a laugh with her friends. And there were difficult times with her friends as well.
mm,
But but that like she was there for the social interaction. Um and and so out of the blue, like she just came up with this whole vision for a future. I'm she just said, I'm going to start a summer school up for kids that find it hard at school, so that they can catch up and have a place to play in the summer. I'm doing psychology, and I'm like, this was even before she'd studied the subject at A level. Like it wasn't a GCSE, but she just thought, this is what I'm doing. And I was like, oh my God. Like right then and there, I was like, oh my God, she's going through this to go on and do whatever and it was just like, this is her path.
yeah.
Like I like I can't. There's no point. Like who am I to interfere in this? And it's been so beautiful to watch the same with all of them. Like I don't have to do
Mm.
that. I don't have to worry about what they're doing with their future, or like how many grades they get, or whether they go to university or not, or what type of job they've got, because it's all in them.
They're like little acorns.
Yeah.
Mm.
So my job has literally been to see that all like flourish, to watch it all come out, to um And and it obviously hasn't all been easy. They've had difficulties with like some really bad times with like friends and school and things like that. Um, but I haven't had to fix any of that. You know, I've like just had to know that they're okay and that like they're gonna figure it out and they're gonna figure it out in a way that makes sense to them to be doing what they're always going to end up doing anyway.
I mean, that is huge as well, isn't it? That is, you said, oh yeah, but just knowing, yeah, they have got this in them. They are going to figure it out. And it's like, your job is just to be the light and the love, but nothing else. And yet the difficulty in keeping your hands off and doing that job and trusting that is true when things really appear. I've got 3 grown-up children, so yeah, and even now, even when our children are grown up, I still I'm still learning about myself and going through stuff, and they certainly are. And it is like, again, right, trusting that same thing for myself. Okay, this is what's going on for me. And it's not on me in the same way as it's not on us to figure it out for our children. It's not on us to figure it out for ourselves. Like, mind has got that too. It's like, right, okay, I just need to stay out of the weeds, if you like. Just kind of, right, stay out of this overthinking, stay out of this desperation for it to be different now in this moment. It's like, no, this is done, this is figured out. Just breathe, take the next step, breathe, take the next step, both for myself and for the people that I love. So insights around that, and insights that allow us to be able to take that role, are freaking huge, I think.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, it's oh, I'm gonna say like comforting. Um, I don't know, because like sometimes it's not. Sometimes like you forget and there is a desperation for the moment to be different, or you do get thought up in trying to work it out and figuring it out.
Yep.
Um, so it's not a comfort, but there's just um, is it a relief? Um, just a in knowing, in remembering that, oh, don't
Mm.
have to think about that.
I know for me, I physically feel that. Like, when I am caught up with thinking about it, for me, it's like the back of my neck and my shoulders, when I get into that place of, oh, what, in some way thinking I should have something figured out, or I need to figure it out for someone else, or whatever that is, like you say, this moment should be different in some way, shape, or form. And I feel it in my neck and my shoulders. And it's like, when I've got much wiser to recognizing, oh yeah, I've got that like tension, and that is clearly me thinking. And you can even see that the metaphor of it almost is like, yeah, me thinking that's, I'm carrying this, and it's like, put it down, move away. It's like, yeah, this isn't. And to me, the minute I get, my body tells me, like, the minute I get that feeling, it's like, yeah, you're doing something, you are trying to do a job which is just not yours to do. Just leave it alone. It'll be done. And then, yeah, the absolute relief of being like, oh yeah, whew, this is done beyond me.
Yeah,
And trusting And also seeing that sometimes my idea of how this should work out, I've got my son who is a typical, he's a typical boy, and he's grown up. He's just turned 26, and his idea of what he wants to do with his life, me as a 60-year-old woman and him as a 26-year-old lad, we have quite different ideas. And there are times he works as a security guard at the moment, and he works nights, so he is up when everyone else is in bed, and all of this kind of thing. And I'm there going like, well, surely you don't want to, surely you want to be more, surely you want to, and it's like, no, Mom, I like what I know. It's
I like what you've said there because it's almost like my job has become to catch myself when I'm putting my opinions and thoughts on them.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And on other people, we look and we think, oh yeah, I know what's best for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see what you should be doing and what's best. And I can see at times we can be helpful in that way, but also it's just to notice when we're overstepping the mark and thinking we know better.
And also it's like, it seems obvious now, like it didn't before, but it's like how how are they gonna ever learn or discover or work out what is right if they don't go through some of the stuff that's wrong?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I think, and it's natural and it's lovely and it'd be brilliant if we could like just make everything perfect and um happy and fall into place like um with ease and whatever, but it's kind of like life's a contact sport.
Mm. And we don't learn by other people's mistakes, really. It's our own, our own experience teaches us. Like, you can even say, when you go back to that experience you had at that retreat, that was something you experienced internally. And like, you've shared that with us now, but you sort of said the experience that you had was so much more than the words that you have shared. And it's like, that experience really showed you something. And we all have those experiences, and we learn by our own experience. That's what being human and being alive is, isn't it? I mean, if we learned by other people's mistakes, we wouldn't be, how long human beings are being around, we wouldn't be making mistakes anymore if we learn. I feel like every single mistake that ever can have been made has already been made a million times. So, if we were going to learn that way, we would have done by now. And even when we try to put things in place because we learn something, you can see it invariably backfires in some kind of way, doesn't it? It's like, I learned this, so I'm going to try and pass this on or whatever. It's like, it doesn't work out.
So I remember when I was doing a master's in leadership and strategic management, and for one of the modules, we we were looking at decisions that these great leaders of the big companies that you'd heard of, like um, decisions that they'd made or traits that they'd had, and there were whole books dedicated to like what you needed to be an effective leader and stuff. And I remember thinking at the time, like, yeah, but they they just did that in that situation because that made sense. Like it's a completely different company, completely different people, completely different situation. Like um somewhere else they might do something different. And it just didn't make sense to capture it. And then on the completely opposite side of that, the amount of times I've gone to her how to
Yeah.
like this is what you need to do to like achieve that, and try to copy it.
Yeah. Yeah. I I I think like what the principles have shown me and what I heard in your insight and what we see, like what to me, what the message of the principles are, it's not the details of people's insights, it's the fact of insight. Like when you talk about your daughter, what she did, that moment she just had this, right, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to create this summer school. I'm going to do this. Like that's insight. That's guidance by mind. And it's like we and if we try to second guess, like if you'd have thought, right, what I'm going to do, I'm going to find something to occupy my daughter so that she thinks of something else, you wouldn't have come up with that. You'd have come up with something completely different. Like I would not have sent my son to work nights, be a security guard and work nights. That wouldn't have been what my idea would have been. And it's like, no, but what we can do is we can trust that everybody, absolutely everybody, has this power running through them, and given the space and love and what have you, and even sometimes when they don't appear to get that, it's like you still, mind or God or the universe, whatever word you want to put on that source, that's running the show and it's got this. And it's like, if we can, the fact of that, that's what I think. It's not, I mean, our stories are brilliant examples of the fact of
That,
that. And
yeah.
it's not, the stories aren't, so go to Spain, lose your passport.
Oh yeah.
You know, have
Sit
this.
and watch crap TV. That was hilarious.
It's none of that. It's not like you say, and the leadership and all of this, like fantastic leadership is if you are called to do that, trust mind in the moment. If leadership is your thing and you are moved, called towards leadership, like whatever it was that happened through your daughter, and I know, like we have spoken, there is something amazing that you are doing through education, and I know like you've kind of gone, whoa, don't know what this is, don't know how to do it, but that we don't, that again, it's that same thing, isn't it? We have like a seed in us, we are pulled, mind, whatever, we are guided, and it's like, yeah, I don't need all the pieces, I don't need to know how to do it, I just need to be nudged and follow that
Yeah.
nudge.
And also, I don't need to know that it'll go right.
Mm, yes.
Um, yeah, I love that, and it's just like someone else's wisdom, insight, guidance always trumps my good idea. Like, because it's like uniquely built,
Yeah, for
isn't
each
it?
person, this is it. And that to me, when I am working with clients, when I'm working with people, it is very much, it looks to me like my job is to somehow or other get them onto the playing field, if you like. Sometimes people are too anxious to even get in the game. And it's like, no, get in the game. And so some ideas, some things, like when you did the listening exercise, that's like, yeah, get in the game, do this and then see what comes. And it is like, once you are in the game, mind, wisdom, whatever words you want to put onto this, it's an integral part of it. You can't get away from it. So the minute you are in some kind of action, and like you say, or whatever it is, you're in some way, you're in this thing, then it's going to happen, and you can rely on that, like 100%. You can rely on that. Like it's never not there. You could no more remove that than you could remove the sun and expect this universe to carry on the way it is. You can't. So it's that reliable. So it is like, yeah, it's but again, it is like, I loved it when you said it doesn't have to go right, because that comes back to that bit when you saw in your insight all of those pieces, and it's like, I can't, those pieces, it doesn't matter how much I put those pieces together. There's a way, because one thing I've noticed when things appear to go wrong is inevitably at some point I see a really huge lesson for me in whatever it was that went wrong. And invariably, when I speak to people at some point, even if they haven't got there yet, we will eventually get to the point of going, you know what? That was the worst period of my life, but I wouldn't change it.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah, because when you look, I mean, there's that great Connecting the Dots, isn't there, by Steve Jobs?
mm,
Have you seen the speech he does? And when you look back at all the decisions you made, or all the things that like felt uncomfortable, or perhaps you wouldn't have planned or wished for, you know, at the time, and you're like, well, I'm here.
yeah,
Like, because of that, and
yeah,
if that hadn't have happened, this wouldn't have happened, um, and yet it's so easy to get fixated on wanting it, and I'm saying right, even saying right doesn't make sense anymore,
no,
because what is that? Like like, how would I even know?
yeah. And it's kind of nice to have an idea of, you know, a somewhere, but like you say, we can't. You can see the hold it lightly, have a like with the build and this thing that I'm doing. It's like I know where I'm headed with this. I know what I want to do, and then it is just like, right, take the next step whilst knowing that is the direction that you're headed in. And what I know is, if I take those nudges and know the feeling more than anything for me, that there is a feeling to this. And I am really noticing when I just stay in that feeling, do you know what? I don't care if this, that I just love, I will go to my little bit of my muddy puddle, as my partner calls it, this bit of land that we've got, and just sit in the beautiful feeling there. And it's like, wow, nothing else has to happen. This is done as far as I'm concerned. It's like, wow.
Yeah, and just to put that into some kind of perspective though, because you've taken on like a huge project. You've got an idea of how you want that project to finish up. But on the way, there's going to be so many curveballs. You're going
Yes.
to like potentially hit things underground that may set you back 2 weeks. You're going to find out that the materials you were like maybe find out that the materials you were going to use are no longer suitable in the environment you're trying to use. Like there are no
There's
matter
gonna
what
be
your
loads of
project plan
other.
is for
Yeah,
that, there are
yeah.
going to be hundreds of little
Yeah,
detours off there.
absolutely.
And so trying to make sure every little bit goes right and according to that plan, which is your best guess of what right um, is really energy draining
Yeah,
and um, impossible to control.
yes,
And no matter how hard you try, and with the potential for a lot of stress and a lot of worry, and when in actual fact you don't need to be focused on that at all. Like you know where you're going, you know what the very next thing is. Oh great, the materials arrived. Like now we get on with this. And then whatever turns up turns up.
absolutely. And that is hugely what I'm seeing. Like the whole, you know, my timescales of it already, where I thought, you know, I thought we would be in the caravan by now. And it's like the caravan's not even on site yet, because I mean the weather has been against us so much doing stuff. And it's just, and I could see exactly like you've said, it's just like, oh, okay, you can stress about this and like argue with the rain or argue, and that's how pointless it is. You know, it's like, yeah, argue with this if you want to, or just look at your beautiful muddy puddle, get into that gorgeous feeling, know what is coming, and allow it to come in its own time. And I've watched both ways. Some things happen much more quickly than I ever thought they would, and other things be much longer than I thought they would. And it is all of it just being right, okay, if you have this idea, this knowing, this feeling, and then you just go with whatever is in that moment and you surrender. So there's a beautiful dance, you know, when you come back to all of it, parenting, building, running a business, whatever it is, there's a really, really beautiful dance between what is yours to do and how you show up and who you are in this, and what is completely out of your control. And again, to me, the dance, I know when I am flowing with that dance and dancing that dance in a really beautiful way, my body, you know, if I've got aches in my shoulders, it's like, nah, you're trying to lead this dance now.
Yeah.
It's like, stop it.
You're trying to dance to a different dance.
Yeah, you're trying to dance to a whole different. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Mm,
And there's also a real kind of like magic and fascination, like almost like you get to be a spectator in that. You get
yes,
to watch it unfold
yes.
rather than like um rather than being the one with the all the tools and all the bricks and like everything and carrying that all around. I love that. I can't wait to see your house when it's finished.
Well, you'll have to come and stay when it's all done.
Yeah. I hope you'll be running a retreat there. I don't even know what your plans are for what it looks like, whether people will have to bring a tent to come along.
Well, you know, I mean, it's a three-bedroomed house, with a garden. That's what, you know, that's what we are building. But there definitely will be room for people to come and stay. And I want, you know, so many people have added to the energy of this build for me. You know, there has been so much learning for me in this and the sharing and the seeing of this. So I am very, very keen for people to come and go and see. But we're a little way off from the finished product. Yeah. But no, it's great. Like bringing up children, like anything we do in life, you can see there is just so much glorious learning when we are ready to learn. And I also like with this, when we have an idea of what it is we want, what I really see as well is what we actually need. Like I know you've done a lot of work. I know you went to Ankush Jain's coaching school, and Rani said something at our last conference. She said, if you want something and you haven't got it, there's a being gap. You know, there's a gap in who you are being. And to me, with all of these things, you know, when we are pulled towards, when there is something we want to create out in the world and it's not there yet, we haven't created it, we haven't done it, then there's this gap that we've got to, you know, and as soon as we have moved over that gap and come, then it's done. And that gap is our learning and growing and our becoming something else. And so what happens in that gap, we may argue with it sometimes, but it's like when you said, if we look back at what happened, we wouldn't be here now if those things hadn't have happened. And it's like, if we have an idea of where we are going and what we want to do, and there's this gap, that gap is going to be filled by the learning that we need to be the person who can stand in the place that we want to stand. And sometimes we're kind of like, no, I haven't got anything to learn. Like,
Yeah.
mm.
I'll take it as I am, please.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that, yeah. In a so we're always getting exactly the lessons we need.
With what we are being called to and what we want for ourselves, what we're, you know, as we live and we see things out in the world and we see how they could be better, and then that's our being gap, isn't it? We learn, we get the lessons, we get that. And if we can see that as the fun and the joy, and relax into it, like exactly like you said about your daughter, right? This isn't on me. I just relax and allow this. It is definitely more about, that's what we don't do. We don't allow, we resist and push.
Yeah. Yeah,
Mm.
definitely. Oh, I love this. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. That has been amazing. Amazing. So inspirational. Yes, you did it.
Thank you for your beautiful birthday gift to everyone, me
Oh,
included.
oh, you're so, so welcome. Thank you for being part of this. I've really, really enjoyed. We ended up having two conversations, this one and another one, and I've really thoroughly enjoyed them both. So thank you so much.
Me too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So if people want to get in touch with you, want to know a bit about you, where will they find you?
They will find me mainly on Facebook, Victoria Green. If they want to email me directly, it's vjcoach100@gmail.com.
Oh, I like that. Thank you very, very much. Thank you.